The sun had barely crested the horizon when Elias Ward found the creature bleeding in his wheat field. At first, he thought it was a downed aircraft. Metal glinted in the morning light and smoke rose from the trampled crops. But as he approached with his rifle held low, Elias realized this was no machine. It was a dragon, not the mythical beasts from Earth's ancient stories, but something far more terrifying. The creature stood nearly 12 feet tall even while wounded, its scales a deep obsidian that seemed to absorb light. Crimson blood, startlingly red just like human blood, pooled beneath a gash in its side. Advanced armor plating covered portions of its body, cracked and sparking with failing technology. The dragon's golden eyes fixed on Elias with an intelligence that made his breath catch. A soldier, Elias realized, an alien soldier. The creature's clawed hand moved toward a weapon at its hip, but the motion was weak, faltering. Elias could have run. Should have run. The Draconian Empire had been humanity's enemy for 3 years now, ever since their warships first appeared in Earth's orbit, demanding submission. Billions had died in the initial bombardments. Earth's forces were outmatched, outgunned, and losing ground every day. But Elias Ward was a farmer, not a soldier, and in his 52 years he'd learned that suffering knew no species. He lowered his rifle. "Easy now," Elias said softly, approaching with his hands visible. "I'm not going to hurt you." The dragon's translator device crackled, converting its guttural sounds into accented English. "Human, you should kill me. It would be mercy." "Maybe," Elias replied, kneeling beside the wounded soldier. "But I've got bandages and antiseptic back at the house." "You've got a choice to make, soldier. You can bleed out in my wheat field, or you can let a stubborn old farmer try to keep you alive." The dragon's eyes narrowed, searching Elias's face for deception. Finding none, the creature gave the slightest nod. Over the next 3 days, Elias learned that the dragon's name was Captain Vareth, 3rd Battalion Commander of the Draconian Imperial Fleet. He'd been shot down during a reconnaissance mission, his escape pod malfunctioning and landing miles from any Draconian position. Vareth spoke little at first, watching Elias with cautious suspicion as the human cleaned his wounds, brought him water, and even dragged a slaughtered cow into the barn for the carnivorous warrior to eat. "Why do you help me?" Vareth asked on the second night, his translator's tone capturing genuine confusion. "Your kind fears us, hates us." Elias paused while wrapping fresh bandages around the dragon's torso. "My son died in the Battle of New Beijing," he said quietly. "Draconian plasma fire. He was 23. Vareth's scales seemed to darken. "Then you should want revenge." "Maybe," Elias said again, his weathered hands steady as he worked. "But killing you won't bring James back. And you didn't pull that trigger." He met Vareth's golden eyes. "War makes soldiers of people who'd rather be anything else. I figure that's true whether you've got 2 legs or wings." Something shifted in Vareth's expression, a softening that seemed almost human. "You are not what we were told humans were, yeah?" Elias tied off the bandage. "What were you told?" "That you were barbaric, primitive, that you valued nothing but your own survival, that you would sacrifice anyone for personal gain." Vareth's clawed hand gestured weakly. "That you were less," Elias snorted. "Sounds like the same things we were told about you." He stood, brushing straw from his pants. "Funny how war works, isn't it? Make the enemy into monsters and suddenly it's easier to kill them." On the 3rd day, Vareth's wounds had healed enough for him to stand. The dragon's regenerative abilities were remarkable, though he still moved gingerly. Elias knew the moment of decision was coming. Vareth would leave, return to his fleet, and this strange interlude would end. That afternoon, the sky darkened. Elias stepped out of his farmhouse to see 3 massive warships descending through the clouds, their hulls black as night and bristling with weapons. His heart hammered as the ships settled in a triangle formation around his property, crushing his cornfield under landing struts the size of houses. Dozens of Draconian soldiers poured out, weapons raised, forming a perimeter. This was it, Elias thought. They'd come for their captain, and he'd be killed for harboring an enemy soldier. But then Vareth emerged from the barn, standing tall despite his injuries. The captain spoke in his native tongue, his voice carrying authority even through pain. The soldiers immediately lowered their weapons and stood at attention. A larger dragon, draped in ceremonial armor that marked him as high-ranking, approached. He and Vareth spoke rapidly, and though Elias couldn't understand the words, he caught his own name. Elias Ward. Repeated several times. Finally, Vareth turned to him, his translator active. "This is Admiral Kreth, Supreme Commander of the Occupation Fleet." Vareth's tone was formal now, official. "I have told him what you did. How you saved my life when you could have let me die. When you should have, by all rights of war." The Admiral stepped forward and Elias forced himself not to retreat. The massive dragon studied him with ancient eyes, then spoke, his translator rendering his words in a deep, resonant voice. "Elias Ward, in 3 cycles of war, we have seen humanity at its worst, your desperation, your violence, your refusal to accept the inevitable. But Captain Vareth tells me of something different. He tells me of mercy." The Admiral paused, and something like respect entered his tone. "The Draconian Empire values honor above all else. You honored the warrior's code when you did not have to, when your own loss gave you every reason not to." The Admiral raised one clawed hand and the soldiers snapped to attention. "By my authority, this farm is hereby declared sovereign ground. No draconian weapon will be raised here. No harm will come to Elias Ward or his property." He looked directly at Elias. "And I will carry word of your actions to the Imperial Council. They should know that humans are capable of this." Elias found his voice, though it shook slightly. "Will it change anything?" The Admiral's expression was unreadable. "I do not know. But wars are not won only with weapons, human. Sometimes they are won with ideas." He gestured to Vareth. "My captain was told humans were monsters. He learned otherwise. Perhaps others can too." As the warships lifted off hours later, Vareth remained behind just long enough to clasp Elias's shoulder with one massive clawed hand, a gesture the translator identified as profound respect. "You saved more than one life." "Elias Ward," the captain said. "You may have saved many." Elias watched the ships disappear into the sky, then turned to survey his ruined crops and crushed cornfield. He should have felt despair, but instead he felt something he hadn't experienced in 3 years of war. Hope. Because if an enemy soldier and a grieving farmer could find common ground in a wheat field, then maybe, just maybe, humanity had weapons the Draconian Empire had never anticipated. Not guns. Not bombs, but the stubborn, inexplicable human capacity for compassion, even in the face of hatred, even in the midst of war, even when it made no logical sense. That, Elias thought as he walked back to his farmhouse, was the most human thing of all, and perhaps the most powerful.